Week 8 of the fantasy football season. I think here's a few tight ends. His sleepers this week. The first guy, Juwan Johnson of the New Orleans Saints. Juwan Johnson, I know he had a good game last week, 2 touchdowns. I know we've seen it before from him, and then he disappears for weeks on end before he has another good ball game. But right here, Andy Dalton, I feel like I had a trust in him in that ball game. This week, he's got a good matchup in Week 8 here versus the Las Vegas Raiders that give up the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends on the season. And over the last few games, he's been serviceable for the most part, except Week 5 versus Seattle, 1 catch, 13 yards. Week 6 versus Cincinnati, 4 catches, 41 yards. And then last week, like I mentioned, with the 2 touchdowns at Arizona, 5 catches, 32 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So right here with a good matchup versus the Raiders that give up the 4th most fantasy points in a potential shootout to tight ends this season here. Juwan Johnson available in 92% of fantasy leagues. And if you're desperate for a tight end, I got him as a sleeper this week. The next guy, Tommy Tremble of the Carolina Panthers. So Tremble, still a youngster in the league, a guy that had high hopes on a few seasons ago coming into the league here was his Panther team. But we really haven't seen much from him. But he emerged in Week 7 with a nice 29-yard touchdown, which probably was a fluke, but the only reason I'm recommending him as a sleeper this week here. The Falcons give up the 3rd most fantasy points to tight ends on the season. This is an indoor game. This is a division type of ball game, and maybe P.J. Walker's going to lean on the tight end. I know Ian Thomas is over there as well, but he's done nothing this season. And Tremble, in my opinion, he's definitely a real dart throw, available in 100% of fantasy leagues, but just on matchup alone is why I have him as a sleeper. And at least last week he did find the end zone. And the 3rd and final tight end that was a sleeper this week, Harrison Bryant of the Cleveland Browns. So Harrison Bryant still available in 93% of fantasy leagues, surprisingly here. David Njoku, we know he's going to be out multiple weeks, 2 to 5 weeks with the ankle injury. And Harrison Bryant, in a few times we've seen him get the starts over the last couple years, he's been serviceable. So right now, I don't think a lot of targets he's going to get. Like I said in a previous video, when Njoku out, I think People Jones and Amari Cooper are going to get most of the targets left out there by Njoku. But the last couple games here for Bryant, Week 6 versus the Pats, 3 catches, 18 yards. And Week 7 at the Ravens, 2 catches, 15 yards. So right here, Monday Night Football, division matchup versus the Bengals, give up the 16th most fantasy points to tight ends on the season. So I think Bryant in deeper leagues is a sleeper option. So that's a few tight ends I have as sleepers here for Week 8 of the fantasy football season.